Hey guys, it's Chala and I am back with another Turnabout stamp from Concord and Ninth. I thought I would even embrace the Christmas in July challenge that's going on over at the ScrapnStamp challenge page. So make sure you head over there and check that out and see what others have created. I'm using the Deck the Halls Turnabout stamp from Concord and Ninth. Now this stamp is absolutely gorgeous. I love the details and it gives you just the perfect images to create mass cards, and that's what I'm going to be doing today. So what I'm going to do is I'm using this jig that I created for my blog hop, my last blog hop that I did with ScrapnStamp, so you can head over there and check that out. And I'm lining this X up from my stamp onto my jig, and I'm doing this on my Tim Holtz platform stamp, this travel platform. I love this travel platform. And I've got that number 1 there on the corner, and that tells me where I'm starting. I'm just using some red cardstock here and my embossing buddy bag to treat it, as I'm using Versamark ink. This is all going to be done with embossing powder. So I'll stamp this down here, and sometimes I like to give it a couple stampings just to make sure that I've got all those little detailed images stamped down. And then I'm going to be using this gold embossing powder. So I'm going to do this each time I do this for each turn of the stamp. So I start off with using my embossing bag, and then I stamp it down with the Versamark ink. Then I'm applying my embossing powder, and then I will heat set that, and then I will turn the stamp and start all over again. So there, I'm on number 2. I'm stamping up my ink. I forgot to use my embossing buddy that time. I should have, but I think it turned out okay. And then I will add that embossing powder, that gold embossing powder. If you don't have gold embossing powder, I highly recommend you get some for your stash. It's kind of one of my necessary things. Both gold and silver are one of those kind of must-haves for me in your craft stash. So go ahead and head over to ScrapnStamp and get your embossing powder. So again, this is now on the 3rd turnabout here, and I've applied that embossing bag and that Versamark ink again, stamping it down, and we just kind of go through the process each time. We'll do that 4 times. And it just gives you such great results. Like the shine at the end here is just amazing. And it almost seemed like my paper warped a bit in the beginning, and then it stopped warping after I heated it up. It was kind of funny that way. But the nice thing about this jig, you saw there that my 6x6 piece of cardstock there actually came off. I was able to put it back down in the same position and not have any issues because I'm using this jig that I made. It just allows you to line everything up properly. So this is the last turn here, and the last time I have to heat set this. And then you can see that beautiful shine that gives you. Now I'm going to actually set this piece aside, and I'm going to work on my second piece here. It's a 6x6 piece again, this time blue cardstock, and I'm going to be using some silver tinsel embossing powder. Now this one is a bit different as it has like a sparkle in it. It's not a smooth embossing powder, it's got glitter in there, so it gives it that more of a shimmery shine to it instead of just like a glossy shine. So again, starting out in the exact same way that I did with the red piece, or the last piece that we did there. Embossing buddy bag, stamp down our Versamark ink, apply the embossing powder, and heat set it. And then we'll go ahead and, I just had to clean my surface off there. There, we're on number 2. And I'll do that 4 times again. So I've just skipped ahead here. This is the final embossing, and you can see again the great results that you get with this stamp set. Look at that. Just the sparkle and the shine is absolutely gorgeous. And we'll have so many pieces to work with here out of this one. Now this is rough. This glitter embossing powder is rough, as opposed to this red one here, which when you heat emboss it, it's really smooth to the touch. So if I was to try and run a cloth over top of this piece here, it would catch because of those glitter pieces. They're rough. So just keep that in mind when you're working. Alright, I am fast forwarding big time here, guys, so that I can get through all of this. I am stamping this again. This time I'm using my Distress inks. And for this first one, it's the Victorian Velvet. Then I move on to Seedless Preserves, Peacock Feathers, and Salty Ocean to get this full piece done. All of these items are linked over at the Scrap and Stamp blog, and I'll leave a link for that down in the description below, so go ahead and check that out. But you can see this is a non-traditional Christmas card, and it just gives you beautiful, beautiful detailed results. I like doing things just a little bit different. I have a lot of friends who actually don't celebrate Christmas, so it's nice to give them a winter feeling card and not having to have that Christmas sentiment per se. Alright, we're fast forwarding through this. This is my last card base that I'm working on here, and the colors for this one is Festive Berries, Forest Moss, Candied Apple, and Peeled Paint. Now again, what I'm doing is I'm inking it up with one color, stamping it down, making sure that you clean your stamp off really well, turning that piece, and then I move on to my second color. And again, I'm doing this 4 times. I switched through the 4 colors, and this is the end result. This is more of a traditional colored card, and it just gave such beautiful, beautiful results. So those will be so much fun to work with here. So there's the second to last piece, and then the first couple of pieces that we did. So I have 2 distress inked and 2 embossed pieces that I'm going to be working with today. Now, I start off here, I'm using just a rectangle and a circle stitch die. I've used my purple thermo tape, and I've taped those down and ran them through my Gemini Junior. And then this will give me 2 pieces here. So this is the circle and then the square piece with the circle missing. And I'm going to create 2 cards with these here. So this is my little cardstock kind of Rolodex or file here, and my mom made this for me, and each one has a number corresponding to it. And so I can just go ahead and go through this little key ring here of all my cardstocks, and I can pick out from all the cardstocks that I have a color that matches perfectly. And then I can go to my file drawer where I keep all my papers, my cardstock, and I can just pull it out. So here I found the one that I want to use, and it is number 93 in my little cardstock stash. So I'll just go over to my drawer and I will pull out this little file folder here. It's just a plastic folder, and it's got the coordinating number 93 there that you see. And then I can keep all my little pieces here, my scrap pieces or pieces that I'm not going to use, in that pouch, and I know that if I want to use that color I can go to that little pouch and it's always there. So I've cut these down to a standard A2 size panel card, and I'm just going to adhere this first piece down with a tape runner. You can use liquid adhesive if you want, but I had this handy. And I was kind of struggling with having that cardstock moving around on me, so I thought I'd use my Wendy Vecchi Make Art Station to try and hold that piece of paper down. I think I had a fan or something going, and it was kind of moving the paper around a little bit, so I wanted to make sure it wasn't going anywhere when I was putting this down. And then once I get that secured down, I want to go ahead and create a sentiment. So I'm using this Big Joy sugar script here that you can get over at Scrap and Stamp, and I cut the shadow piece out of vellum, and I'm going to cut the Joy sentiment itself out of red cardstock. So I'll just trim a piece up here, and then I'll use my thermotape again just to tape those pieces down to that magnetic piece for my Gemini Junior, and then I can run those through and they come out just perfect. If you don't have a Gemini Junior, highly recommend it. I have troubles with my hands sometimes, and it's just been a lifesaver. I don't have to worry about die cutting and crafting, you know, with my hands hurting. I can still do all those fun things. So once I get these pieces all set out, I'm kind of thinking about what I want to do with this sentiment. And while the red is nice, I wanted to give it a little bit of pop. So I just have a scrap piece of cardstock here and my Tombow mono glue, and I'm applying just a few little dabs on the back of this sentiment. I'm going to set that aside and let it dry. And I go to the bathroom, get a drink, you know, that's fine. I come back and it's tacky. And I apply that down to this scrap piece of cardstock here, and this kind of gives me a handle to work with. And now I can use my Versamark ink here and just apply it straight down. And then I will add some clear embossing powder. And what this is going to do is really give that red sentiment a nice shine. It'll really kind of stand out and be nice and glossy. I didn't have any red like foil cardstock, so I thought this was a good alternative to doing that. And just using a coffee filter there so that I can then funnel back that extra embossing powder back into the container. Now I actually do this embossing process 3 times to get a really nice thick and beautiful shine on this sentiment, and you'll see that on the card later on, how that looks. But this is just a really handy way to do your embossing and not burn your fingers or not have any issues. So once that's all cooled off, I can now attach that joy sentiment onto that vellum kind of back shadow, and that'll help the sentiment pop even more off of that green backing cardstock. Using my reversible tweezers there, again, if you don't have a pair of those are a crafter must-have in my mind. And then I'm just kind of cleaning up with my microfiber cloth here, just some glue that kind of squished out on me. I've been having problems with my Gina K glue here. It either clogs, and then when I get it unclogged, it comes out really fast. So yeah, I'll have to kind of take a look at that and see, maybe, I don't know if it's because of the temperature in my craft area or what's making it go funny, but I never used to have that problem. Maybe it's just an old tube or something. But I'm going to go ahead and apply this sentiment down, trying to get it as straight as possible, and then I will let that set up. Now I wanted to add some enamel dots. I didn't have any that would work, so I pulled out my Nuvo drops here, yeah, crystal tonic drops, and I'm applying them to a backing piece that I have for my big roll of score tape, and it works perfectly because I can just squeeze out a couple of these drops of Nuvo drops here and set them aside and let them set up, and they peel off beautifully. So if you have some of this release paper, save it. Don't throw it away. Use it for your projects. The colors that I'm using for those drops, they are the Autumn Red and Woodland Green. So like I said, I'm going to set those aside. I actually end up leaving these to set overnight. Ideally, I think you're good, a couple hours in, but I like to just be super sure and let them set overnight. So I'm going to actually move on here, and I'm using that circle piece that we had left over from when we die cut the rectangle and circle together, and I'm using my score tape and trying to get a straight line here with it with my T ruler. And I'll apply this ribbon that I had in my stash, and I'll just adhere that down onto my cardstock, leaving some ends over top so I can wrap it around. And then I'll just use a little bit more score tape to secure those to the back. And then I'm going to take this circle piece and I'll adhere that down again with some more score tape. And I didn't really measure it out. I wanted my sentiment to go on top, and then I realized it doesn't stand out enough. I don't really like that. So I'm going to solve the problem just by turning that card horizontally, and I'll adhere that Merry Christmas sentiment on the bottom. Now this was done with gold glitter embossing powder, and I stacked 2 die cuts of that Merry Christmas together. And then I just did the same process that I did with that joy sentiment by heat embossing. That little embellishment there, that poinsettia, my mom actually made that years ago with a piece of bread, and kind of made almost her own Fimo out of a piece of bread and some glue, and created this little embellishment and then painted it up. Isn't it gorgeous? I'm going to hopefully have a tutorial for you guys on how to do those closer to Christmas, so make sure you check out my blog and watch my YouTube channel for that. So I had created some extra embellishments here and set them aside. Some of them are still drying, but I wanted to show you how easy those pop off that release paper. So if you have this Big Mama roll or release paper from, say, other adhesives, save it. Save it for when you want to make your own little embellishments. And here they are, attached to this Merry Christmas card. And I attached another one of those poinsettias that you saw there to that joy card here. And I added some sparklets. They're still drying, so they look a little white right now as I just glued them down, but it will dry clear, as you can see here with these 2 finished cards. Alright, moving on to our glitter embossed backgrounds. I have a piece of vellum here that I cut that I want to wrap around. I've already die cut a rectangle from the original 6x6 panel, and I'm just scoring the vellum so that I can have it wrap around nicely. The sentiment that I have there, I actually die cut with my silhouette machine. I couldn't find a sentiment in my stash that I wanted to use that would work well, so I decided just to create one with my silhouette machine and cut it out of some glitter cardstock. Again, using that score tape here. It's one of my favorite adhesives because it is so nice and strong. And I actually run out of this during my cards here, which makes me very sad. I must order it, but it's okay. I can pop over to Scrap and Stamp and add that to my cart with some more Concord and Ninth products, because Concord and Ninth is the product of the month, and there's a great coupon code that you can use. So that's also in the Scrap and Stamp blog. So check that out for that coupon code. So here's the sentiment I'm doing for the inside of this card. I have a piece of acetate there that I put down, and I'm going to stamp my sentiment on top of it just to make sure everything's lining up. It actually didn't line up, so I'm glad I used that acetate to do that. It's just some leftover packaging, nothing special. So I can wipe it off and start over and make sure everything lines up with my little sentiment here. And then I will stamp it down again and see how that looks. And it's perfect. So now I can go ahead, remove that, ink up my sentiment again, and stamp it down, and I know it's in the perfect place. So there we go. That finishes off this All Is Calm card. Now I didn't show you the red piece here, but I just simply cut it down, cut a Noel little sentiment. This is some cards I made actually years ago, or actually last year, just to show you that you can go non-traditional with this Turnabout stamp. I really hope that you enjoyed these cards that I made today using the Deck the Halls Turnabout stamp from Concord and Ninth. Like I said, there's some great deals to be had over at the Scrap and Stamp sale area there. Make sure you hit their site, check it out, and check out my other videos as well. Thanks so much for stopping by today, guys, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Until next time, take care.